going inside the issues of our community. This is Local 12 Newsmakers.
Good morning and welcome to Local 12 Newsmakers. Since 1990, voters in Ohio have rejected a variety of gambling proposals. In 1990, it was a casino in Lorain, Ohio. In 1996, it was a riverboat gambling proposal. 2 years ago, it was a proposal to put 31,500 slot machines at state racetracks in 2 casinos, with the money going for college scholarships. On November 4th, Ohio voters again have a casino gambling proposal on the ballot. Issue 6 proposes an amendment to the Ohio Constitution that would allow the construction of a $600 million casino on a parcel of land near Wilmington, Ohio. The promise is jobs to that community. Under Issue 6, the casino would have to pay up to 30% of its gross gaming receipts less payouts. Those tax receipts would underwrite state regulatory functions and a gambling prevention treatment program. Beyond that, Clinton County would receive 10% of the remaining taxes, and the other 90% would be distributed to Ohio's other 87 counties based on population. County officials could direct the spending of that money. If an additional casino was built in Ohio, then the tax on the Wilmington casino would drop to 25% or to the lowest level negotiated by a future casino. A fierce campaign has been launched by the supporters and opponents of Issue 6. The pro-Issue 6 effort is led by an organization called My Ohio Now, which is backed by Lakes Entertainment Incorporated. Representing that effort is Dr. Brad Pressman. The opposition to Issue 6 comes from many different sources, including religious groups that oppose casino gambling on ethical bases, the Argosy Casino Company, which operates a casino in Lawrenceburg, Indiana, which is trying to protect its market. A consistent critic of gambling proposals over the years, but does not take official positions, is the Buckeye Institute, which describes itself as a public policy research and education center committed to promoting limited government, individual freedom, economic liberty, and personal responsibility in limited government. Representing the Buckeye Institute today is David Hansen, the president. Welcome to both of you to Cincinnati and to Newsmakers. I appreciate you coming into town for this. Let's start, Brad, with this question. There have been these 3 earlier proposals on gambling in Ohio. What, if anything, makes this one different?
I think there's 2 or 3 significant differences. I think that in 2006, people didn't vote against a casino referendum. They voted against a bad plan. And this plan's much different. This plan is going to bring a destination resort to Ohio, something that no one else has ever proposed. It's going to be a $600 million investment, and it's a private investment. It doesn't cost the taxpayers anything. It's going to return hundreds of millions of dollars to the counties, keep our tax dollars inside the state. It's going to create up to 5,000 permanent jobs for Ohioans, and we know that we're desperate for jobs. But there's one more thing that makes this initiative much different. For the first time, and it's a history maker, Argosy Casino is spending, we heard, $40 million in an attempt to scam and scheme the Ohio public. They're running commercials which aren't true. They're hiring paid consultants like my opponent in an attempt to really fool Ohioans. Their job is to buy an election, and that's never happened before in the state of Ohio.
2 things I want to make clear. First off, you'll have a chance to comment on one of those commercials. And secondly, David Hansen is not a paid representative of Argosy, and he did not come through Argosy. I called him because he takes another approach to this. David, what is your perspective on this particular proposal for gambling in Ohio compared to earlier proposals?
Dan, one thing that we see, and we took a look a lot at the proposal that was up on the ballot in 2006, and which is a major concern for this one now, is the price isn't right. It's going to be a ripoff of Ohio taxpayers. And this goes
Why is it a ripoff? Because it sounds like a lot of money.
Sure. It goes to the heart of this. There's a lot of money in this industry on both sides. And what we've looked at consistently is this issue, is that the price in terms of a license, there's absolutely no price being charged for the license to have the monopoly over casino gaming in Ohio. And over in Indiana, 4,000 plus slots were just sold to some casino interests at roughly $800 million in terms of the license to be running those slots in casinos. So what we say is that the license that should be charged to whoever's operating a casino here in Ohio, whether it was the proposal in 2006, and our message then was the price isn't right, and our message is the same this year in 2008, is the price still isn't right because it ought to be $1 billion.
So there ought to be a fee to get into this, is
Absolutely.
what you're arguing,
And
not just the taxes that come out of it?
Absolutely. And not only that, the taxes that are supposed to come out of it, the language is ambiguously drafted, and it's being left up to the General Assembly to decide the tax rate.
And we'll get to that
Okay,
too
yeah.
Later on.
Yep, that's fine. Yeah, but I do want to make clear, we're not paid consultants. We
right.
are long involved in the public policy here in Ohio, representing the viewpoint that this state is made more prosperous when free market principles are put to work.
And you were not recommended by Argosy. I want to make that clear.
I have to agree with my opponent. When we talk about free market principles, that means giving Ohioans the opportunity to make a choice in where they gamble. And really, when we heard the word monopoly, that's a very silly notion that the opponents are throwing out to try to fool Ohioans. Because we know that there's 4 states that surround Ohio where people go every day to gamble. And so the day when our casino opens, those people have a choice to stay inside Ohio or go across to, say, Argosy Casino. And so in a marketplace, in a free economy, we are very competitive. In fact, that's the reason why Argosy Casino is spending $40 million against us, because they're afraid to compete. But the idea,
why doesn't the constitutional amendment then say, and we'll let other casinos...
Wait just a minute, David, go ahead.
The idea that we're a monopoly in the marketplace is false. And to talk about what David's going to mention, why we're legalizing one casino, in no capacity does that stop any other community, whether it's Toledo, Northeastern Ohio, Youngstown, from going through the same process and opening up a casino as well.
David?
Well, yeah, again, the definition of monopoly and the definition of market have many different variations. The point that's at stake here is that the states do regulate very closely what's happening with gambling, and they regulate gambling because it's an opportunity to capture certain kinds of resources. And this particular monopoly that's being granted here, at least in terms of the proposal, for the license to operate a casino here in Ohio, it's a giveaway when no license fee is being charged.
Why shouldn't a license fee be charged?
Can I interject for just 1 minute? I agree with Dan that the government will regulate this industry very, very closely, and will make sure that the laws are in place. That's one of the reasons why when the General Assembly sits down to look at the tax rate, it's common sense to realize that they're going to charge 30%. As far as a license fee goes, every state is independent, and what happens in Indiana isn't at all what happens in the state of Ohio. Indiana, for example, has a dozen casinos. They have 16,000 people employed in the casino industry, and if they have a license, that's just the way they manifest.
Well, couldn't one argue, though, that Indiana was taking a systematic statewide approach to this, whereas what we've got here on this proposal is sort of one-off, one casino using the Constitution, an amendment to the Constitution, to get one casino in?
Well, see, the reason that this is a proposal for one casino is that the proposal, for example, in 2006 included all the racetracks and had a bunch of casinos spread throughout Cleveland and the Northeast, 2 casinos. And so one of the things you realize is that Ohio just can't step into a 9, 10, 12 different casinos across the state. So when we sat down to look at our proposal, and our polling really demonstrated that one casino was the way to go, and we placed it in a place where over half the population of the state of Ohio has access within 90 minutes.
Okay, let's take a look at something. I'm going to play commercials from both sides, and I want to take a look first at a commercial that's being played in support of issue 6, the casino proposal. Let's take a look at that.
Thanks, Ohio, for creating jobs in West Virginia.
Thanks, Ohio, for helping Indiana's economy.
Thanks, Ohio, for giving your tax dollars to Michigan.
Neighboring states have thriving casino industries, and Ohioans are flocking out of state to spend their money. An Ohio resort casino would keep our tax revenue here, create up to 5,000 new jobs that can't be outsourced, and jumpstart our economy. Then our neighbors could spend their money right here in Ohio. Vote yes on Issue 6, Ohio's Resort Casino.
David, Buckeye Institute is for economic development. This is a proposal being cast in this particular commercial, and what Brad was just saying before, as a jobs proposal, as something going into a community that's losing a lot of jobs because of the DHL situation. Why isn't what about this jobs? Because a lot of people in this end of the state say, hey, people just drive over to Indiana and gamble their money into the riverboat casinos down in Lawrenceburg and Rising Sun and on down. Why doesn't that make sense?
Well, a couple points. One would be that all the states that we saw there did charge licenses for their casino operators, and so we do want to make the fair price being made. I would say also that there's a better way to create jobs. I mean, if we think that casinos are a better way to create jobs, let me give the example. I know that that Brad here, or Bill here, is shaking his head.
Brad.
Okay. Then what's going on is that you could take Clinton County and you could take Greene County, because the location of the casino is very close to Greene County, and the particular measure exempts the casino from a lot of Clinton County regulation. It won't be controlled by zoning laws in this. It's actually in the summary being provided by the Department of Taxation, and so it's definitely a fact that it's going to be exempted from a lot of local regulation. So you want to create 5,000 jobs? Here's a better way to do it. If you want to make the casino exempt from local laws, let's switch it around and say that Greene County and Clinton County were to become an income tax-free zone and a commercial activity tax-free zone. Because of course the casino won't be subject to the commercial activity tax, it won't be subject to local income taxes or others like that. So why don't we make that for everybody in Greene County and Clinton County? Income tax-free zone, commercial activity tax-free zone, and while we're at it, why don't we end compulsory unionization in that county? And don't you think that out of the 8,000 employees in those two counties, that 50 of them won't step up and create 100 jobs tomorrow?
Let me clear the air. I mean, let's talk about reality. The reality is that our casino is going to pay all local, state, and federal taxes without looking for loopholes of any type or tax abatements. So we are paying a CAT tax. What you've just said is completely false, and it goes back to the idea of
what part of it's false?
Well, the fact that we're not paying taxes or CAT taxes, we're paying all local, state, and federal taxes in every part of the casino, whether it's the hotels, restaurant, golf course, or the casino itself. So that's completely false. Our company is already working with the Clinton County Regional Development Association and Mr. Chris Schock, and he knows, and he'll validate that we are working with all the different local variances, guidelines, ordinances systematically. So the contention that we don't follow local laws is wrong. But lastly, this is what I'm hearing, that because of a license fee, we shouldn't create 5,000 jobs when we need jobs. We shouldn't keep hundreds of millions of dollars of tax revenue inside the state when we need them. And in fact, that's just a more compelling argument.
Let me ask this question. When the Indiana casinos were promised, there was a promise of a lot of jobs. And my understanding is that in fact, locals had a hard time qualifying for those jobs, and because there's some real skills that are necessary to be on that gambling floor, and you had to import a lot of people to do those jobs, so that the local impact on the job market wasn't exactly what it seemed to be when the proposal was made.
Well, what I can tell you is that currently there are over 16,000 people in Indiana that work directly in the gambling industry, and if those jobs are good enough for people in Indiana, they're good enough for the people in Ohio. But what our partner has always done, and our partner is Lakes Entertainment, is that they come into a community and they train from the ground up. That is, they don't import people, whether it's people in IT, which is a big demand, or people on the floor hotel. They have had a history of going through a job training program. So when we say these are 2,600 Ohio construction jobs and 5,000 full-time jobs that are for Ohio, people like the AFL-CIO endorse it because they know these mean Ohio jobs.
Okay, I'm aware of time, so I want to take a look at the commercial on the other side. If we could take a look at that.
The Issue 6 casino gambling scheme would change Ohio's constitution to benefit one out-of-state Indian casino operator. 6 is filled with loopholes. That means there's no regulation to keep criminals from working in the casino. No accountability. Politicians and lobbyists would decide the key details after we vote. And no guarantee the operator would pay any casino taxes on their huge gambling profits. Don't lock this casino gambling scheme into Ohio's constitution. Vote no on 6.
David, you mentioned earlier the loophole situation and the fact that a lot of this is going to be worked out after the vote. which is one of the points in this commercial. Would you like to elaborate on that? What are your concerns?
There's no guarantee that the General Assembly is going to levy the 30% taxes that are permitted by the constitutional amendment. The language says shall levy a tax up to 30%. There's no guarantee that they'll do that. So if the proponents are spending something on the order of $15 million to advocate and propose this particular amendment once it's adopted, I mean, how much do you think it would take to talk down the General Assembly from a 30% rate down to a 20% rate or a 15% rate? Because no receipts are going to go into the state general revenue fund, which is what the politicians use to spend on the projects that they get political reward from. There'll be a lot of county commissioners walking around saying, oh, you got to give this money. There'll be some MRDDE groups that will be coming around asking for this money. But the casino operator is going to have all the incentive in the world to really, it will be a tremendous lobbying bonanza.
This is particular measure. Up, and that's the way it reads, up to 30%.
There is no guarantee.
Can I simply respond to that? You know, ladies and gentlemen, it's really just common sense to realize that when a $600 million investment comes into the state, that you're going to pay taxes. And it's common sense to realize that the General Assembly, the state of Ohio, when they read the ballot language, is going to simply adopt a 30% tax. That's just common sense. Our partner and myself, myohio9.com, has already publicly stated, and our company, the Lakes Entertainment, has to report to the SEC and the IRS. We've publicly stated and endorsed the idea that we'll pay a 30% tax. So in terms of all this idea of criminals coming into the casino or we won't pay taxes, you know, it's really up to the state government, which on a common basis regulates and dictates
There's
taxes.
one other twist on this tax rate question, and that is if there are future casinos that get a better deal on the taxes, your tax rate would be lowered, assuming that it was 30%. And the wild card in that is if a Indian casino, and this is complicated because of acquiring property and getting federal permission and all of that, but it's not out of the question. There are Indian tribes trying to get rights to this. It would be reduced potentially to zero, and it seems like the language.
I'd like to have a chance. I'd like to have a chance. Couple things. I'd like to have a chance. A couple things is, in terms of the fact of the matter is, it's going to go to the General Assembly. I have a lot of respect for a lot of the individual members in the General Assembly, but to suggest that common sense rules the day up in Columbus is really taking a leap of faith. If the proponents really mean what they say, then they ought to say right now that we pledge to limit our lobbying expenses to, say, $250,000.
Right.
But again, if they're okay, fine. Listen, we'll get that down, and they're going to pledge to $250,000.
We don't own lobbyists. We have no lobbyists.
Well, but you can lobby yourself.
And we're simply not going to spend $250,000 in lobbyists. We've already accepted a 30% tax, and we're willing to pay that amount of tax. So even if an Indian casino were to come in at zero.
But what about this possibility of future?
All right, let's talk about
particularly in Indian
casinos. It is literally impossible for the state of Ohio to have an Indian casino, and reality,
unless the federal government permits it.
But you see, the federal government has never, in the history of Indian gambling, ever taken a tribe from one state, allowed it to move across state borders to open a casino. In fact, the resident expert from the University of Dayton Law School, Blake Watson, has said on September 22nd that based just on the federal laws alone, a Native American casino cannot come to Ohio. Beyond what the federal government says, there are new mandates which allow local and state officials a much stronger say. And so all that has to happen is that the governor simply says no. But the truth is simply this. There's no federally recognized tribes in the state of Ohio. No Indians. There's
tribes from Ohio. The Shawnee, the Miamis out in Oklahoma.
They are not federally recognized as living in the state of Ohio.
As living in the state of Ohio. You're correct.
Oklahoma Indians cannot even show a genetic inheritance from Ohio.
Well, believe me, that's a complicated story. David, one last point, and we're out of time.
Yeah, it's a bad deal. It's a ripoff of the Ohio taxpayers. We should be getting more than we're going to get out of this proposal, and it's really going to lead to a lot of problems down the road.
Brad, one last thing.
Dan, you know 30 seconds. If you vote against Issue 6, this is the guarantee. You'll receive no taxes. There'll be no jobs. The opponents of Issue 6 simply want Ohio to stay down, and that's why companies like Argosy spend the money they do to stop it.
Thank you very much for being here, for both of you. Thank you. If you would like to read more about Issue 6, check out the YesOnIssue6.com website for the arguments for passage. For arguments against passage, check out Issue 6 Fact APRoundtable.com or American Policy Roundtable at aproundtable.org. For the Buckeye Institute, see buckeyeinstitute.org. Stay tuned. After the break, we shift our attention from politics to a critical effort in our region that has been thrown into a different light because of the economic crisis.
Give, and together we can help feed the hungry. And together we can find more reasons to smile.
The United Way campaign, a staple of Cincinnati life for almost a century, calls on us in good times and in hard times to live united with all our neighbors. Welcome back. When officials launched this year's United Way campaign on August 27th, the Dow Jones closed at 11,520 and the NASDAQ was at 2392. Seem like ancient history? This year's goal of 63 million was seen as a reasonable stretch goal. 6 weeks later, the economic picture has changed radically, making the campaign more difficult, but the need even greater. To discuss the status and importance of this year's United Way campaign, I'm joined by the president of the United Way, Rob Reifsnyder. Rob, welcome to Newsmakers. Welcome back.
Thank you, Dan. Thanks for the reminder about the economy.
Well, you know, when your office called the other day, normally this is all politicians at this time of the year, but this is too important.
Thank you.
Where do you stand in the campaign right now?
Well, right now, in terms of the $63 million goal that our volunteer leadership set a number of weeks ago, we are at $40 million, or about 63% of the goal. So there are many, many companies and organizations and individuals who have already pledged and done wonderful work for the United Way.
When this sort of thing happens, when there's a real economic strain on the entire society, on our region, can you see the direct impact on the campaign? Is there a direct correlation? Is this something that you're really worried about?
You know, there is direct impact. First of all, let me say that our business is booming in ways that we don't really want to have it booming right now in terms of the service need. So that's been the first impact. Our 211 service, which is our 24-hour, 7-day-a-week hotline for people to call when they need help. The calls are up over the last 60 days by more than 25%. And the Free Store Food Bank, helping people with food and other groceries for working families, has a similar experience, and a variety of agencies across the community is seeing the increased needs. So that's the first thing that I think we'd want to say, is that in economic downturn, needs go up.
And this is a campaign that looks for the entire year out.
Yes.
And I think we all know that both on local and state government levels, there's going to be cutbacks.
That's right.
And some of the agencies, I've been talking to some of the agencies, they're very worried about the government investment in those agencies, so the private is even more important to maintain.
That's right. Agencies are possibly hit with a double whammy if government funding will be cut back, and also private sector funding through the United Way could conceivably cut back. So we are really working hard in this year's campaign, and it is affecting some companies, obviously, and some individuals. If you're not working, you can't give anymore. And we understand that many, many people are concerned about their own wallets and pocketbooks with the issues in gas prices and food prices and the stock market and so on.
What most of the campaign is generated through workplaces, people who contribute in their workplaces. But what can individuals do? What can companies do right now over the next, how much longer is the campaign officially going on?
It will end October 30th officially.
Okay, so another 2.5 weeks or so.
3 weeks.
What can they be doing?
Well, first of all, people can make individual contributions either through our website, which you'll talk about, or simply by calling 762-7100 and asking how they might contribute. Individuals can make a gift. If companies haven't provided a campaign in the past, but they are thinking, well, maybe this is the year, give us a call as well, and we can help you set up an employee campaign and consider corporate giving as well. And of course, companies and individuals that are already involved in the campaign, if you can maintain and even increase your giving, it will make such a difference for so many people in our community.
The challenge is higher, but so is the need.
That's right.
Basic point. To learn more and to pledge, you can go online to www.uwgc.org. United Way of Greater Cincinnati. Thank you for making Newsmakers a part of your Sunday morning. Have a good week.
What do you have to give? Join together and make the most of it by making your United Way pledge today, at work or online. Please give, and together we will all live united.